The biggest thing for me, and that I notice with our audience and people that call in, is just pornography, just the inability to. I don't know if we're even genetically able to battle how powerful it is.
I agree with you.
So for about the last 3 years, I have been battling an addiction that has been compromising my future.
For years, my dirty little secret was that I was addicted to pornography for years.
I'm going to a therapist today, actually.
Good for you, man.
I just struggle. Yeah, I mean, the masturbation thing. For me, when I would ejaculate, I would feel shame.
Sometimes I'd spend an hour or two on an adult site trying to find the perfect video, and then one day I finally caved in and wanted to see what the fuss about these campsites were. Probably the worst decision I've ever made.
But pornography, it really, really messed up my life in a lot of ways. And you know, the thing is, it became a thing where I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell anybody. It was a thing that, it was my secret, nobody knew, and that allowed it to grow.
Nowadays, of course, many young men feel they are trapped by pornography. It's so available. And pornography, of course, as a number of recent fathers have said, is the iconography of the devil. It is the iconography of the devil. It is evil. And it fuels evil within us. It fuels the passions. It fuels lust. It reduces all women in our mind, in our heart, to something that gratifies our feelings. It reduces women in this way. Human beings made in the image of God are then reduced to something that will satisfy our desires.
Right? Is it an emptiness you're trying to, is it like other addictions, you can feel an emptiness?
I just get antsy. Like, I'll just get home and I'll just feel like maybe, there was one time I noticed like a girl that I thought was cute, I didn't end up going to talk to her. I have no clue if she was 70 or 22.
Or
it was kind of far away.
7
Yes,
kids.
I had no idea, but I put her on this weird little pedestal suddenly in my head.
Yeah.
I didn't talk to her at all. I left and went home, and then I just felt just worthless.
You know, I had to realize when I was depressed. I had to realize when I was sad about something or when I was feeling lonely, because those were the times that I was more likely to use pornography. The times when I would, you know, something really bad happened, or I had my heart broke, but I thought I was going to get something that didn't happen. And those times, it's just like eating, you know, when you feel sad or lonely, you grab food. And instead of food, for me, it would be pornography.
Whoever does not voluntarily withdraw himself from the sources of temptation will involuntarily become the slave of sin.
And it got bad. And when I say bad, some people deny it. They say, hey man, you know, you can't really be addicted to pornography. There's no way. But I'm gonna tell you something. If day turns into night and you are still watching, you probably got a problem. And that was me.
Because I got sucked in slowly but surely, slowly over time, I realized myself going on it more and more frequently. And fast forward to the last, I want to say 8 months, every single month, I have been spending any and every last bit of extra money that I have come in monthly on campsites, on online paid porn, on models. And it has not only compromised my relationship, but my future.
God calls us to be purified in the heart, not to allow these desires and passions to dwell, not to feed them. And of course we are surrounded by a culture that seeks to profit from these passions. Advertising, movies, music will cultivate, stimulate these kinds of passions in order to sell us things, in order to stir up a passion that they then promise to gratify. We're being manipulated by all of these media, and we must guard ourselves, protect our eyes and our ears from allowing these influences to enter us, because they will stir up the heart to evil.
If your brain learns to be aroused by watching other people have sex, it is not necessarily going to carry over to the ability to get aroused when you're one-on-one with somebody else. That the higher the dopamine peak, the bigger the drop afterwards. And it's not that you drop to baseline, you drop below baseline. When people are pursuing dopamine peaks over and over and over, and they aren't getting them, typically it's because they've been pursuing that activity far too often.
I realized how much of it has consumed me, and not only while I was active on it, spending money in the moment, but even when I go to the gym and do other activities, I find myself constantly thinking about the next opportunity I would get to spend money. And I was so embarrassed and humiliated to open up to her about this that when I opened up, I had to have her stand behind me because I couldn't bear to look her in the face and tell her where all my money has been going. And it was the best decision I have made, because as I said, it has saved our relationship, it has saved my future. I now have a savings.
It affected everything. I didn't tell my wife, didn't tell my friends, nobody knew. But the internet allowed that little secret to just stay and grow. And it was something that, you know, my wife was literally like, I don't know you anymore. I'm out of here. And that changed me. I had to change because I realized, this thing is a major, major problem. I literally had to go to rehab for it. And the thing what I found is that by not telling people, it becomes more powerful. But when you tell, and when you put it out there in the open, just like I'm doing right now, to the whole world, it loses its power.
Many times people will excuse their lust, their passion, by blaming the women that they see in the street. Oh, they wear clothes that are so different to the past. They dress inappropriately. It's the summertime. Look how they're dressing. We must take responsibility for our lust, for our passion, for the things that we do. We cannot go blaming others. When we confess, we're told never to confess the sins of others. It is always our own sins that we confess. So what kind of confession is this when we say, but it's their fault, look how they dress? And we must ask ourselves, if my mother, my sister, my daughter were to dress in this way, would it evoke these kinds of passions within me? Hopefully, most people would respond, of course not. Why then? Because already we feel differently towards these women than the women that we are allowing lust and the passion to overcome us towards.
It changes the way you think about people. People become objects. People become, body parts. They become things to be used rather than people to be loved. And it really, you start to change the way you see people, and you start to use people. You start to feel like, you're the man and they're just, whatever. And I had to change my thinking. I had to change what I believed. And once I knew, and once I was aware of what it was doing to me, it changed me.
Why? Because we love these people. We love these people truly. Our sisters, our mothers, our daughters. We already carry in our hearts love for them. And when we allow lust to overcome us towards some stranger, or even somebody we know, then it is a lack of love in our hearts. We must recognize it is a complete lack of love to turn somebody into the object of our lust. And we must repent of this, recognize that our hearts are unloving.
And one thing everybody has to realize is that you can't survive with guilt and shame. Shame is something that says you are bad. Now, guilt says you did a bad thing, okay? Sometimes it's good to feel guilty. Actually, it's very good to feel guilty because then you know you hurt somebody. But shame doesn't say you did something bad. Shame says you are bad. And when you think and believe that you are bad, there's no way out. There's no way out. You say, you know what, forget it. I might as well use drugs. I might as well overeat. I might as well use porn. I might as well go do something crazy. Because if you believe that you are bad, then you act accordingly.
that if we do not voluntarily, if we do not choose to deny ourselves, to turn away from those things we know stir up the passions within us, then involuntarily, against our choice, we will be dragged away by sin. We will become slaves of sin. We will be captured. We will become servants of evil. We will find ourselves incapable of resisting sin because we will become the slave of sin. So we must first, as with all temptations which must be cut off at the root before they begin to grow, we must voluntarily, we must choose to deny ourselves, to reject those things that fuel temptation. And pornography fuels desire and lust. It fuels the passions. It drags us away into the clutches of the demons. Who amongst us would look at these defiling images if we could hear the cackle, the howls of laughter and delight of the demons when we do so?